Alright, about to go long NASDAQ here. Looking for higher prices. Entering off of the first presented fair value gap. I'm treating that as a inversion. I'm believing that the midnight opening price as well as relative equal highs between 6:30 and 7:30 in the pre-market session are my draw to liquidity. Kind of like how that midnight opening price kind of sits right directly on top of those relative equal highs. This is a little bit after the 950 to 1010 macro. I was a little hesitant on entering during the macro only because I wanted to see us I wanted to see how price reacted with the consequent encroachment of that first presented fair value gap if we traded to it, and I wanted to see an energetic push in the upper half. So that's when I entered a little bit after. I think I entered at like it might have been like 10:13, 10:12. So this is in my lucid eval that I'm trying to pass, and we entered 2 contracts, and I really like how price was reacting with the upper half of that first presented fair value gap, so I added a 3rd contract. And our first partial that I'm looking to take majority of the position off are the relative equal highs that form between 8:27 and 9:13. So I see that as very, very smooth. Too smooth for my liking. I see that as price wanting to disrupt that. Stop placed at the bottom of that first presented fair value gap. We also have a inversion, it's a SIBI that's right on top of that first presented fair value gap. I'm treating that as a inversion fair value gap. I want price to treat that as support and stay above it, or at least in the upper half. You'll see me annotate that in a little bit. Really like this willingness of price to stay above both that inversion fair value gap and that first presented fair value gap. Today's setup was very, very clear, very obvious. Yeah, here I'm annotating too smooth. Price likes to make smooth edges jagged. That's what ICT always says. price one more time, trading back to the first presented fair value gap, but we failed to reach it, so that's a really nice sign. And there's that inversion fair value gap that I'm keeping an eye on. And I like how we failed to even close in the lower half of that inversion fair value gap that's shaded in orange. Right here, annotating a 5-minute order block. Roll my stop up a little bit, a couple of handles below that first presented fair value gap consequent encroachment. And I really like the displacement here. I like how we're aggressively leaving that 5-minute order block as well as that 1-minute inversion fair value gap. Beautiful push here. And here I'm just annotating another SIBI that I want price to treat as an inversion fair value gap. And there's our first partial. Trader has now been paid. Now we're looking to see if price wants to trade above those relative equal highs that we just took out and continue to our draw, which is that midnight opening price stacked right above those 630 and 730 relative equal highs. We also have a lot of low resistance liquidity, trendline liquidity above that high. So I see that as a nice draw. Price would want to attack those buy stops from traders that have gone short. And here I'm just checking all the time frames, making sure everything's aligned. Looks okay. And here price refuses to trade into at this moment. It's moving above those relative equal highs that we took out, treating that inversion fair value gap as support. I see that as bullish. This might have been one of my better trades this month. Really liked how this played out. Especially in terms of locating the draw, finding out where price wanted to go. This was nice. So now price is reacting with the consequent encroachment of that larger inversion fair value gap, inversion fair value gap that's below our terminus, and we want to see closes, candle closes in the upper half. Bodies can reach into the bottom, wick into the bottom, but we want to see closes in the upper half. very, very close to passing this eval. I mean, this month has been, even though with the price action being difficult, we passed, what was it, 1, 2, 3, 4, we passed four evals. I've blown 3 of them, but you know, we're working on that part. But I never passed 3 before. I mean 4. That's wild to me. And probably it's the end of the month for this. We have FOMC tomorrow, so I'm gonna not trade tomorrow. I'm gonna end the month on a good note, on a good trade. And we're very close to our terminus, which is those relative equal highs and that midnight opening price. So I roll my stop up a little bit, just above the 5-minute order block, and in the lower half of that inversion fair value gap. Beautiful, beautiful trade. This is definitely one of the better trades that I've taken all year, honestly. This was really, really nice. And you know, I gotta, sometimes you gotta talk to NQ. You know, she's toxic. You gotta talk sweet to her, talk nice to her. You know, just come to Papa. Just a little bit more. Roll my stop up a little more to the consequent handle below the consequent encroachment. Let's make it larger just in case you didn't see. And that's all she wrote. Beautiful trade, and that's it for the month.